welcome. My pleasure.
Let's start testing some audio, if that's all right.
Test.
Go.
Yeah, test. Yep.
Is there a microphone back there? Yeah.
Yeah, would you like a cup?
Yeah, that would be great. Oh, you're just.
If it's terrible, Bill made
He
it.
made it though, Clint.
If it's
Don't
terrible,
congratulate
Bill
him
made
yet.
it.
Did he use it this
I don't see it dripping over the sink.
Put the filter in this time. That's a start. Sure.
So who sent the last version of the schedule and everything so I can find it?
I sent one out.
You have the latest?
You talking about the agenda?
Yeah. So I'll just pull you up.
Is everybody's microphone on?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Testing. You hear me? I don't hear anything.
So it's called Packet Time? Oh, no, that's pretty good.
I don't remember. I thought it was just agenda.
Testing. Kind of delayed.
Packet info for BOCC. Here's the Board of Health agenda, is what it says. What Board of Health agenda are we talking about? Is this for the executive session today?
What's that? So,
Board of Health agenda, was that
Yeah.
the thing that you're talking about?
A word. Dr. Brown wrote us an epistle here in a See this?
Yeah, it doesn't even come to commissioners. I sent him an email and said that's Board of Health stuff, so.
Yeah, it's overkill too. Probably more important things to do.
So this is just the going into the executive session, because
Mhm.
Yeah, we were gonna, I promise I'll
Yeah.
record that for you, so we'll get that recorded. For you. Oh, it is terrible. That could be worse.
it's not terrible. Ah, there it is, Tom. I found it. Latest agenda. And I'm going to print it.
Pretty somber group this morning.
Mhm.
Hmm. Humane Society of Fremont County Agreement. We talked about that today.
Yeah, that's an every year thing.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have a dog pound here.
Issues?
I just want to make certain that we can hear all the participants on the call. The live stream is going out with sound perfectly. I just want to make certain everybody else is going to be able to speak to us.
Heck.
We have 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I think we'll go ahead and start, Vern. You'll kind of catch up as we go here, huh? The Custer County Board of County Commissioners meeting will come to order. Let the record show today is August the 28th, 2020. The time is 9:00 a.m. I would ask everyone to silence your cell phones if you have not. And Ms. Peggy, could I impose upon you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, ma'am?
Nice.
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. And Assistant Clerk to the Board, could you conduct the roll call, please? Present.
Here.
Here.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Amendments to the agenda, gentlemen?
I have none, sir.
None here unless we can move things around where we're more efficient. I think it's fine.
Okay, nor do I. Approval of the minutes?
I reviewed the June 30th, July 7th, 8th, and 14th minutes. I thought they were satisfactory, so I'll move that we approve the June 13th, July 7th, 8th, and 14th meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from June 30th, July 7th, July 8th, July 14th. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Those minutes have been approved. Appreciate Kelly's work in doing that. Commissioner items, Commissioner Canada, would you like to begin?
Sure, it's been pretty busy. I'll hit the highlights here. Airport, we've been busy working the AWAS with a budget on it. It has been ever moving. Did you get a hold of Sangre, Crystal? Did you have that meeting with them, Tom?
We did have, yes.
Is anything happening? Any gifts? Any?
Yeah, I'll give a report on that during my commissioner report.
Okay. Then we had also a field trip we talked about. We're still on at 8 o'clock on Monday. You guys have it on your schedule already for a briefing and then a walk around. And then we have broadband program wise. We've of course been having the tower meetings and the economic development meetings that have been going on in conjunction with those. Had a meeting with CenturyLink, telephone call. They had Carmel was on, Teresa Ferguson, the broadband lead for the state, was on that too. And we're looking for options of what we're doing to help the Wetmore phone issue, as well as the broadband program that's going to be running the broadband down that part 96 to pick it up off of where CenturyLink left off, either in Wetmore or up here on the corner of, I call it Lewis Corner. A lot of people call it different corners, where the tree line hits right out of the valley. Anyways, good call. Talked about options with Teresa on state funding and the new broadband funds that might be available. And that will be discussed at more, we're going to get a meeting together with Carmel Associates on the fiber program. So I wanted to ask you, do we want to meet with them, with the mayors separately before we bring in others, or, we can do it either way. And they're available on Monday afternoon. If we want to do that. I know that, Tom, you said you're booked up till 2 or something, and maybe 2's open. We can get Carmel to talk to us and the two mayors and bring us up to speed on where they stand on the program. And then we'll have a joint program meeting, when we mentioned it with one of our meetings with Bogle and their crew on the tower project, I should say, Dale Mullen. So we want to get them integrated discussions with us, and we can do that after we have our update from Carmel with the mayors. So 2 o'clock available, maybe Monday, because
Zoom?
I already had it on the calendar for 1 o'clock. Is it at 2 o'clock now?
well, we can. Well, I don't know how you got it on at 1, but maybe.
Wow, either.
1 o'clock's fine with me if it's available. I was only saying 2 because I thought we had.
Zoom meeting? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1's fine with me. I've got a meeting from 10 to 12. So.
Okay, well, let's shoot for 1 then, and we'll set up a Zoom call
And that's on
and
the
the two
23rd
mayors.
first, right?
It's on the 1st. Yeah. But is that?
On the first of
It's Monday, whatever day of the week that is. What day?
31st.
Hang on a second.
it's the 30, it is the 31st, because I remember we moved that one out of there because of the back-to-back meetings. It's 1 o'clock, 31st. And we'll do a Zoom. And let's see, what else did I have? Oh, we had a nice, I thought it was a good meeting on the interview. We had good candidates for the COVID coordinator. Went well. We got one hired. And are we going to put out I guess we're putting out a press release on that as part of that. Was that part of the program?
I don't know.
So we're setting up the process, in other words. So
I don't think we have that decided yet. We still need to talk about who's going to be the lead contact
Yeah.
for the group.
So we want to do that after we get together. Are we still meeting with the team on Tuesday
Yeah,
at noon?
Tuesday we need to decide that.
At noon between the meetings of the commissioner, or right after the commissioner's meeting? Is that what we're going to do? Did we decide not to do it at noon, right? Did we decide to do them at 1?
1 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah. So 1 o'clock on, that'd be Tuesday?
The first.
Yeah. Okay.
1 o'clock, yeah. And we're going to meet here, is that correct?
Right, it's my,
Or no, we're going to meet at
no, we're in town hall.
town hall.
So Tuesday, COVID. That's enough for now. I'll catch up with you if there's something that you jog my memory with on other things.
Mr. Prince?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On August 18th, I attended the tower meeting, 17th, on the 18th, because the task force meeting and also the COVID relief committee meeting. On the 20th, I attended the CCI summer conference. It was a fairly long meeting with Zoom. It went really well.
How many were on? Did it work?
They were probably, I know you were on, Tom, were there 50 or 60, I think?
Are we talking about the Mountain District meeting? Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
And everybody could hear. Huh?
It worked great. There were no issues whatsoever that I was aware of. And then the public health, I had a public health meeting after that with Dr. Brown.
Mm.
On 25th, again, we had the recovery, COVID recovery meeting, and then we had the interview, or we had the interviews at that time. We were successful in hiring a candidate. And then on the 26th, I spent most of the day on the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments quarterly meeting, which is always very insightful. It gives us an opportunity to talk about lots of issues going on with all the counties. So I brought up a few issues that I was concerned about, wanted to talk about. And I'll get to those a little later. I believe one of them is on the agenda. But looks like a lot of things are going on. The COVID money is being spent by all the counties, and everybody's moving forward with that, as we are too. So I don't think we're really behind the curve. I asked how they were all doing, and they all said they were about the same place we are. I think Fremont might have been a little bit ahead of us, but we're moving forward. So I'm looking good at that. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, I would guess catching up. Is my mic working? Do you know? Can you tell, Vern? Okay, good. It's nice then, because I don't even
Don't even hear us.
hear it. No feedback,
Hope
no
I can
nothing.
hear.
So thank you for doing that.
Hope everybody else
Appreciate it.
can hear.
So August 12th, attended the DOLA Zoom meeting. August 13th, attended the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District meeting in Salida. That was live. The 17th and 19th of August, attended the SSC Zoom meetings for the broadband tower. Colorado, or the Coronavirus Relief Fund meeting on the 18th. The CCI Mountain District Zoom meeting on the 20th. August 24th, I attended the planning and zoning meeting in the courtroom. The 25th was another Coronavirus Relief Fund meeting that you mentioned where we interviewed the candidates for coordinator. And then that was my calendar, and I have some things. I'll just quickly, I want to mention these. We can decide what we want to do with them. One of them is discuss selling some surplus vehicles. Right now, it looks like we have a 2000 GMC Yukon, a 2002 Chevy Astro van, and a 1990 Chevrolet pickup. So I'm going to recommend that we put these out for sealed bids and get them sold. I'd also like to recommend that we flag the proceeds from those vehicles to go into the Justice Center account.
I would agree with that.
Um,
Do you want to do that as a motion?
I don't,
I move we sell the surplus vehicles.
That part I wasn't concerned, to put it where the funds go, I
Oh,
think would make
well,
sense to go in a
yeah.
motion.
But we got to get them sold
Right.
first.
so you want to include that in the motion? I think that would be
We can,
appropriate, but
we want to put it in the general fund, or do you want to put it in the
Justice Center.
Justice Center?
I'll
I-
second.
okay. Been moved and seconded to proceed with disposing of these surplus vehicles, at least those three. I asked Road and Bridge if they had any. He said no, but I was told that they may have one down there that he either wasn't aware of or forgot about. So I'll look into that. So we may have four. So I'll move forward with that if the motion passes. Discussion.
Yes, sir, thank you. How would we advertise? Are we going to put that in the paper record?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like we did the
Sounds
big truck race we
Yeah.
sold the other day.
Other discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Cannon, Commissioner Prince.
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Then I did attend the Sangre de Cristo Electric Board meeting on Wednesday. The agenda item was concerning a donation from Sangre de Cristo Electric to the county. And they agreed, voted on to donate $5,570.64 of labor towards the AWAS project. So,
Nice round number.
yeah. So it was 11,000. No, I'm sorry, it was 10,800 for the total cost. So they're donating over 50% of that.
So say that number again. 55
$5,570 worth of labor.
for labor, okay.
And the total cost was 10,800.
Good, okay.
That's all I have. Upper Ark report, kind of business as usual. They are moving forward and going through the engineering process of considering raising the dam at Lake Deweese. So they want to increase that. I haven't heard the number of how many acre feet yet, but so that's on the books for our county. Of course, the lawsuit's still on the docket as well for July of next year. So I'm going to guess probably if they get everybody to stipulate out, then they'll probably either move that date way forward or it'll go off the docket for the state water court.
Yeah, I tried to call and I'm going to follow through with Terry Skanga, I guess, to see about getting another meeting on the status of that for everybody.
Is there a question about the dams thing? That's the first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah.
So obviously the purpose of raising the dam is to allow more water to be collected in the reservoir, no problem. Who owns, does Upper Arkansas own the land around
No.
there?
No,
No,
So they would.
the state of Colorado owns that land.
Okay, so state of Colorado would have to give their permission to do that, obviously.
Yes, and primarily the big player is the owner of the
Right.
lake itself, which is Deweese Dye Ditch Company, but out of Canyon City.
they've been studying that and we brought it up maybe it's over a year, almost two now, that they talked about the study and that's
About
been,
once that level rises, it's going to spread out,
Sure.
obviously, and I'm wondering
Yeah,
whose property is going to be affected.
yeah, and
there's a
that's,
couple right on the edge.
that's the part of the whole engineering thing is to see what the increased lake area will end up being, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Attorney items?
Last week,
I received a CORA request for folks listening in. That's Colorado Open Records Act request for documents from the sheriff's office. Shannon was out of town and couldn't be reached. I got a hold of Vernon and sent the request to him. Vernon pulled a lot of records. It took some of his time to do that. I managed to get an extension on the 72-hour period to respond, and Vernon got me all the documents, and I responded. The gentleman who'd made the request was very appreciative. He thought that Vernon was very transparent. I guess he was worried that somehow we'd edit or redact things, and Vernon pulled everything. I didn't even look at it. Shannon said he didn't care, so just forwarded that on. And
Is that for public knowledge who requested that core request?
his name was Tim Jordan,
Okay.
and I mean, beyond that, I don't want to go into what he was asking for or anything,
That's fine.
but, he insisted that he receive an invoice for that. Vernon spent 2.5 hours on it, so it's $30 an hour. The first hour is free, so I sent him an invoice for $45 and told him to pay it directly to Donna. I gave Donna a copy of it, so she'll know what it's for when it comes in. But thank you, Vernon, for doing that with everything else you were doing. Also last week, I'd been riding around on my ATV in some of the back roads, and I saw various structures that I had questions about. So I went on a ride along with Jackie, Hobby, and Kristen, and showed them the ones I had found. And there are several that did not have any permits or anything. They're being built as dwellings, no septics or anything else. So Jackie is contacting those property owners. I don't know if there's a finder's fee involved or not. Probably not.
Should be. There should be. But
I also, at Jackie's request, I had some input for revisions to the zoning resolution. Planning Commission is working on making some changes, and I had some suggestions on that that may or may not be incorporated. And then this week, a matter came up that Jackie Hobby's involved in, and I've been talking to her on a daily basis, and she's been consulting with me, and that's taken quite a bit of time. And then finally, on Monday, I got a call from Mayor Buck Wenzel from Silver Cliff about the light on top of the AT&T tower, the red light that is now flashing. And he had gotten several complaints from residents about that brightness of that light. And he was reaching out to Dark Skies, and the inquiry came to me. So I talked to him about it. And then I got a hold of Evan Brooks. He was the individual we worked with when we were negotiating. He was involved in the site acquisition for AT&T. And his recollection was that the county requested that light be on there. I don't remember if that was requested or not. So I guess I'm just asking. He said that the tower is now managed by a company known as Tillman Infrastructure for AT&T. And he was going to get in touch with them and have them contact me. I haven't heard anything on that yet, but the light does violate the local ordinance, Westcliff ordinance, for the brightness and not being shielded. And I understand it's there for Flight for Life and for SAR operations, at nighttime. But I was hoping we could figure out some way of perhaps maybe having it on a remote control where EMS or SAR could just activate the light when they need it rather than having it on 24/7. But I need to talk to Tillman Infrastructure, and I'm doing this as Dark Skies, not as the county attorney, but I wanted to let you all know since it affects something on county property.
Just a question here, Clint, because I've had several complaints too.
Yeah.
The Verizon tower north of there has a light on it, but it's dimmer and it blinks. And there is an FAA requirement. You can't have it be manual. Now, I don't know I don't remember how tall this tower is, but there's probably some options. But if you're doing the investigation, then you probably ought to find out why the Verizon tower, and there's another tower that's very tall that is located in the valley somewhere that somebody brought up. I don't know if it's true. But if that's the case, there probably is an avenue to make it dimmer, but you know, aircraft need to be able to see it.
Well, I understand. I don't know what the height requirement is. It would seem if it was an FAA rule, we would have had a light on there right from the beginning instead of just putting it
That's
up
right.
now. Because apparently it just was turned on this past weekend,
So I
but
don't-
I'll see what I can find out on that and
I
look
think
into it.
the FAA requirement's 200 feet or more.
250.
We did, at the urging of search and rescue and everybody else, ask them to put a light on it, so.
Okay, and Buck was asking him if it could at least be dimmer, maybe that would satisfy some of the people, but you can't do the normal dark sky thing about shielding it. The whole idea is it's, you know, got to be able to see it from the air.
It could be dimmer,
Um,
be seeable.
I'll work on that in my capacity as the president of Dark Skies, but I'll keep you posted, see if there's something that can be resolved. See if, I'll make sure I run it past you before there's any kind of a change or anything. And that's all I've got for now.
So there's no point in contacting the people with AT&T about this if Tillman Infrastructure is the ones managing the project.
That's the way Evan Brooks explained it to in an email, and he was offered to contact them. He was going to forward my concerns and my emails, but I just haven't heard back. So I may follow up with him today and see if, you know, there's somebody I could contact directly about it.
Okay. Thank you. Our admin assistant is out, so we'll move on. Public comment, if anybody has anything they want to speak to the Board of County Commissioners about that's not on the agenda, now would be the appropriate time. Public comment?
Uh-oh.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Hold on just a second. We're working on the. Do we have anyone that cares to have public comment?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't hear anything back. Hi. Thank you all first for setting up a Zoom meeting. So much better. I appreciate it. My name's Nita Lynch. I live in rural Custer County. And I know that you all serve a dual role as county commissioners and Board of Health, which first off, that's a lot on your plates. And I did send an email to you all requesting that we broaden the Board of Health, adding more members. And I'm not sure what that process would be, but one, I think it would take a lot off your plate. I think it would give us more voices. And, you know, I think we have great people in the Valley that have some expertise that could really help on this end, because I have been concerned about non-compliance of masking, and science does show that that helps regardless of what people, some people are trying to say. We just saw another outbreak at Sky, whatever that is, Sky Ranch. So anyhow, just comments on that. Thank you. And thanks again for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Further comment? Okay, we'll move on.
Can I just say, I don't know if it's some people may not know that they have to unmute themselves. I don't know. I'm muting again.
Gentlemen, any unfinished business?
I have none, sir.
Nor do I.
None here.
New business will allow public comment on any action items. First item under new business, consideration of approving the vouchers and signing the checks. What's the group's pleasure?
I move we accept the vouchers and sign the checks.
August 2020.
It's August 20.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the vouchers for August 2020. Discussion? Did you see anything, gentlemen, out of the ordinary?
To mine.
There are a couple of things that kind of, I asked about it, they seem to be okay. I don't know, sometimes there are vouchers in there. I always wonder if someone just sends a voucher in, do we just approve it or, you know, how it's.
Yeah.
But,
Most of the time, I think that's the case, yes.
so, you know, I guess they're okay.
Okay, I also had some questions. I certainly raised eyebrows at a $62,000
Yeah, what's the
voucher.
line? Yeah.
But obviously it was from Road and Bridge and for repairs. I see the tourism had $1,000 for stickers. I don't know what that is. Do you have any idea, Commissioner Prince? Have you?
Yeah, they
Privy to that?
ordered their new logo. They ordered stickers for those. And there's more to it than that. I think it also included some expense for promoting their new logo and promoting tourism in the valley again.
Deb Adams sent a pretty good description of everything.
you know,
they were doing.
I'll give you my opinion. I think Deb Adams has done an outstanding job. She really cares about this. She's been the focal point, you know, with the demise of
Chamber.
Chamber. Thank you. And the tourism board going to be taking over the lease. They're going to give a small office in the back to the chamber for just to use as they see fit, even though they're not going to be an organization.
They could be at some point. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
They may come back, yeah. And tourism is taking over the lease. All things considered, I'm pleased with the activity that they're doing. So the $1,000 was for stickers and for promotion and that kind of thing. I thought it was reasonable.
Right. Then when I saw the line item on WCCL, I immediately thought of West Custer County Library. And
Yeah.
then I came to the realization that it was not. I talked to Donna. She said it's a Wetmore Community Center Library. So it's odd that we have two libraries with the same acronym, but we wouldn't have been paying a service call to the West Custer County Library. Anyway, I'm sure that was for heating and air conditioning. Further discussion? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the vouchers, August 2020, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Flower? Aye. Motion carries. We will initial these. You want to start, Mr. Kanda? Okay, we'll move on. Consideration of seating a Board of Health with non-elected citizens. I think Ms. Lesage is here today. She called and asked if she could be present. And I said, since she was on the agenda, she could. Good morning, ma'am. How are you? Welcome. Yep, nice to have you. You're welcome to have a seat right there. Thank you. We're just wrapping up signing the voucher or initialing the vouchers. So if you don't mind, let us run through that real quick. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. You've lobbied or you've had folks lobby the commissioners, huh? It's politics. You want to get something done, you got to lobby. Probably got a dozen or so
I
emails.
think there were other people who lobbied that I didn't even know about.
Oh, is that right?
Well, while we're doing that, I
I'm
can
gonna
give you a
sit
little
that
bit of
close. I'm gonna
background
have to
if
put
it's
this on
okay.
unless you want it back up. Is this mic for Mary Ellen here?
One more. Miss that one.
Okay, I'll give you a little background.
Certainly. Yes.
I got a call from Beth Green, who recommended that we look at the Board of Health and determine whether the Board of Health members should be independent of the county commissioners, or in the event that that's not capable, and to have some professionals put onto the Board of Health to help advise us further. Because what we have now obviously is our director of public health and Dr. Brown. And so we really don't have a whole lot of advice on this at the moment. Based upon a discussion with Beth Green and is it okay to call you by Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So she was kind enough to say, give me the floor, let me run with it. And I said, there you go. So that's kind of the background, how we got to where we are at the moment. And if you feel differently, please correct me.
Okay, so question before the commissioners, I guess, is a consideration of seating a new Board of Health with non-elected citizens. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to see on the Board of Health medical professionals who have background.
You'll need to slide a little, this is a directional mic, so you need to be right
Real
at
close to
that
it. Get
microphone.
real close.
Real
Yell at
close.
the mic.
'Cause I can tell you, there's probably some people interested in hearing what you have to say.
I just think that we need medical professionals on the Board of Health. And I don't know if this surprises you, but we have a lot of medical professionals who have been working with public health for years, who volunteer. That's basically what they do. And it's the Medical Reserve Corps. And Donna McDonald started it in 2009 and trained people wonderfully. So public health has a large group. There are more than 40 people who are willing to serve as volunteers. I think that's impressive.
So if I may, ma'am, what has prompted this? What has the three commissioners as the Board of Health, what have we not done that you feel that these medical professionals will be able to do to aid this county?
I think, we're in the middle of COVID now. And I think that might have started it. But the reality is the Medical Reserve Corps does a lot more. There's a lot more of health issues in this county. We have a flu season coming. We are in the middle of the driest, let me tell you, the driest time I can remember. I have not had one bale of hay. And I think that the Board of Health can concentrate on health issues. What if you have a fire?
How does that differ from our current public health department and our Office of Emergency Management, who have taken charge of all this up until now? The Board of Health has been with the commissioners for a very long time. And I'm suspect that the feeling is that either the Board of Health has been deficient, or there are things that should have been done that aren't being done, that would indicate that we ought to advocate that role to a different organization or a different group. I'm trying to find out what it is that we're lacking, that this group, that your advisors would be able to bring to the county that handled by the Board of Health, the Public Health Director, and Office of Emergency Management.
Well, we have a new public health director that unfortunately nobody has met or knows anything about yet.
He's been here
One
a little
week.
over a week,
Yeah, I know.
and he's had an emergency
Yes,
medical issue.
and that's
he
the-
plans on getting out to talk to people.
that's the issue. He came at a time where everything's an emergency. And I feel sorry for him because it's a new community for him.
Let me try something too, just to amplify what he said. The MRC, they're a volunteer, and they
Correct.
always are available to give advice to the public health agency.
Right?
Are they not taking it? And right now, that same group with the new director, they ought to be in there getting familiar with him and make him, we'll let him have a chance to meet the people and figure out how to do it better and make some recommendations to the Board of Health on.
MRC has to be asked. And as I know,
Okay.
they have not been asked to do.
That's a very good point. So that's something that we certainly would hope that the new health director would do, and we can direct him to do that, of course.
And the Board of Health needs to be comprised of people who understand when citizens ask questions and when they want a response, it becomes a response of people educated in answering the question.
Mhm. Agreed. So that would be a good thing for them to give advice to the Board of Health to make sure that, or the public health agency, so that there are those options available to the Board of Health to make decisions, right?
My idea of a Board of Health is maybe just my idea, but it's people who are trained, people who are educated in health, and that includes mental health, physical health. I even think there should be a veterinarian on the Board of Health.
That'd be a good one.
I mean, so the police get called because there's a wild animal
Sure.
problem. I think the Board of Health can be expanded. And when people come with concerns because they know the community and they're educated, they can respond to those concerns immediately.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. During our discussion, I told you that I felt that an independent Board of Health probably made a lot of sense. My comment to you was that I felt that, and correct me if I'm not saying this properly, that the three of us, Bill has some medical background, but not like we have, and Tom and I, to the best of my knowledge, I have no medical background. So having medical professionals handle a Board of Health really makes good sense to me. I'm wondering if we're a little premature right now because we have a new director. I know a lot of frustration has been that the mandates coming down from the state, which are in fact laws, they're punishable by jail time and fine. They're health laws, they're misdemeanors, have not been enforced. My conversations with Dr. Brown, our new public health director, is that he will enforce those on a case-by-case basis based upon, he had a good plan on how to handle that, rather than walk down the street and say, oh, you don't have a mask on, you're getting a fine. So I'm wondering, and I'm just proposing this, maybe we're a little premature let's let Dr. Brown get his feet wet. I would love to see him have the Medical Reserve Corps as an advisory group to him. And then he comes to the Board of Health. That I'm just trying to think this through because I don't have a great grasp on this. As I mentioned to Chairman Flower a little while ago, I reached out to multiple counties in this area, Lake, Fremont, Chaffee, a bunch of them,
Adams County,
5 of them,
or
and none of them have,
maybe Alamo.
all of them have the county commissioners, also Board of Health. They say the only time they have really seen a separate Board of Health of independence was the larger counties, El Paso and Denver, those kind of things. And I said, why? And they said, well, 3 of the 5 had 5 members on the board, and they asked medical professionals to be on the Board of Health. So that kind of made sense to me to help advise. And then most of them, or all of them, basically said, you know, if it heats up and there's a lot of animosity towards something that goes on, that they felt that the combination of the commissioners being the Board of Health, those people already hardened to the scrutiny that we sometimes get from disgruntled constituency. So I'm really kind of on the fence. I really feel when we sit as the Board of Health, the Food Commission, we really need help. My question is, it's not really a question, it's just a comment. I really kind of feel that I'd like to let Dr. Brown meet with the Medical Reserve Corps, have them on as advisors, and then we could decide whether it makes sense to actually add folks onto the Board of Health or not. Because our conversation, I agreed with you. I agreed with what you were telling me. I'm not trying to step back on what I said. I'm just trying to work through this process in my mind. So I'm just verbalizing where I am and how I'm coming to this point, to be truthful with you. So that's my comment, and I'll listen to anybody else.
Yeah, let me help too. I agree with you, Mary Ellen. We need, it doesn't matter who's on the Board of Health. Citizen X, Y, and Z, doesn't matter. They need good advice to consider and options that are available to meet the needs of the county. It's not just the medical needs, but you also have the needs of the economy side of the house, which has mental issues, other health things that could happen as a result of decisions. And that's what we're paid to do, is by you. We work for you. We don't work for the state. We work for you. And so it's great hearing the options and hearing your concerns, because in fact, where we've had this discussion at some level already, and even in hiring Dr. Brown, we had some discussions about the need right now. You know, up till now, we've been a one-man shop in that public health agency, and a lot of volunteers. And then we've grown. The county's grown. The emergency situations have grown. This COVID thing is a big, big deal. It shows the need for more advice to give us as, and as commissioners, we always will be accountable, even for a Board of Health, because the money comes through us and the accountability is the commissioners, whether regardless of who's on the Board of Health. So I think Jay's right on the money. We need to get the new health director, who's got a lot of experience, to come up with those kinds of options. Who should we get as advisors? I liked your vet idea. I hadn't even thought of that till now. And oh, by the way, our public health agency should be accountable for some of the things that the Jackie Hobby does from the septic point of view, or the health issues on homes that aren't set up correctly. So we're right in the middle of getting reorganized, really, and doing a better job. So I think the more we talk and get more advice and ideas from you, the public, or from Dr. Brown, who can reach into the professional sectors and work with the MRC, even working with other counties. We've asked him to understand, and like what you just did, Jay, is talking with other counties how they operate. And there's some legal reasons why we're set up the way we are too by the statute, which we've got Clint working on issues so that we can better redefine our public health agency. And I think it's great to get Dr. Brown on the ground before we and get some more ideas before we consider an action, which I think it was booked as a discussion on this, and I really appreciate that discussion with you.
There's consideration of seating a new Board of Health with non-elected citizens.
Well,
So my
that's our
perspective
discipline.
is,
Hang on, mine says Board of Health member discussion.
That was mine
yeah,
too.
and that was,
Who made it?
that's
to
not the latest
consideration?
version of the email that I sent out.
And,
Oh,
Tom,
Yes.
I think when I talked to you, the people of the community have really, and I didn't realize in the beginning when I started this, I mean, there were people out there just really upset, and rightfully so, because public health wasn't really, their hands were tied. And I'm talking about before. And when your community becomes so upset, there's something going on that isn't healthy. You know, I'm elderly and I've been in the medical profession for a long time. I think it's necessary to really do something now. And as far as I can see, if we had a Board of Health of medical professionals, that would help Dr. Brown. That would help him understand what this community has done since 2009. And I have to say, our Medical Reserve Corps isn't doing, they're volunteering, they're not doing it for notoriety, but they must be respected. I don't think you realize how much they do.
No, absolutely not.
I truly don't know what to do.
There's no way we
I mean,
could
I'm
know
sorry
how
to
much
say
they
that.
do.
I mean, I probably should. I'm deficient in not knowing what the medical.
And say-
reserve-
And that's
here-
what a Board of Health is. It's not just, it's education. It's subjects that the community needs to be educated on.
Mary Ellen, I agree. Maybe we're mixing up terms here. You're calling the Board of Health the agency itself. I believe the public health agency needs to be staffed with the right people. And if it's volunteers and using the MRC for that, I think that's great. There's no reason why not. And I'm first time I ever heard of the MRC. It's been in recent times. Have you been? I'm not aware of all.
I've been
understand,
familiar, that I know they've been around for a long
Right.
time.
but I've
Question
never.
I have, as I just
Right.
mentioned to Mary Ellen, is I'm not sure what they do. I mean, do they work closely with our public health department?
It
Do they
was
work with the
Donna
clinic?
that started it. It's national.
Donna.
Right.
Which is,
But what
it's,
does the
na-
organization
it's a
do?
national organization. You
Right.
have to take the classes. But what happens?
You have to be certified before
Yes,
you take the
yes.
classes in something.
Doctors and stuff. I know that we have a lot of medical we have doctors, nurses,
A lot of
a lot of very
Oh,
professional
and
people.
MRC is also support people who do register people at the flu clinic, set up the whole system. So it's not just
Mhm.
medical people.
Mr. Chairman, can
Yes,
I
ma'am.
intervene here for a minute?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, this is a Board of County Commissioners meeting, but we're talking about now are, as far as how the Board of Health and the Public Health Agency should operate, that's properly something that should be discussed in a Board of Health meeting. The issue here, and the only role the county commissioners play in this right now is whether you continue as the Board of Health or whether you choose to step down as the Board of Health and appoint private citizens from this county as the Board of Health. You can't appoint citizens to serve along with you. It's
Right.
either the county commissioner serving as the Board of Health or private citizens. The statute says you have to have at least 3 if you're going to go that route. It's the top number. There isn't a maximum.
Right.
But as far as getting into how this is going to work and utilizing MRC and everything, that's really an issue for the
Yeah.
Board of Health as far
Thank
as
you.
I'm concerned. And what you should be talking about, if it's something that you want to really consider, is whether you want to dissolve the county commissioners serving as the Board of Health, which would have to be done by resolution, and then appointing a citizen Board of Health, which
Right.
you would also do.
And,
Right.
and Mary Ellen,
And that's basically
we-
what I'm asking.
Okay,
and we do intend, just to, so you know, from a Board of Health point of view, that was our intent, is to convene a meeting to discuss exactly what Clint was talking about, is how do we set up, what is our long range plan? How do we get the volunteers or hire people to be in that position? Because as you know, we've got a $7 million budget in the county, and 2 million of that is for roads and bridges, basically.
Good.
And then yes, so it's very hard to hire the professionals, and so we would definitely address that.
So, Mary Ellen, you mentioned to me that you would bring some names of people that you would recommend to be on the Board of Health if we step down. And do you have those names with you?
Yes.
Would you mind sharing?
and I asked her not to share those names
Okay.
because I think when it comes time for us, if we make a decision to seat a new Board of Health, we're going to have to put that out to the public and request applicants. So unless you guys feel differently, I think it's a little
No, I think that's probably,
premature if
that's
we
probably right.
do those. So I want to back up a little bit. Mary Ellen called me and asked if we were going to make a decision today. And I said, no, because it's on the agenda as a discussion item. And she said, well, I've asked this to be on the agenda. I would like to at least to have the commissioners have the ability to make a decision if that's what they want. So that's when I changed that from discussion to consideration, and that was August
I have the new
28th at 8:07.
I have
So
the new one.
it is a consideration item. So I appreciate Attorney Smith said. I've got notes right here to say exactly the same thing. First of all, in my opinion, the MRC is a group of volunteers to assist in the county. They're not an advisory group to the Board of Health by any means. We can't add members to the Board of Health, as Attorney Smith just said. We either need to replace them or leave it as it is. So I support seating a new Board of Health. I agree with Commissioner Prince and Commissioner Candid that the timing is not great. I'm not sure it's premature. I just think the timing's bad. That's all, with the seating of hiring of a new public health director. But I think this is a matter that needs attention sooner rather than later. I agree that I think a board of professional, backgrounded and experienced people in the medical and health field would be better serving this county as a Board of Health than the county commissioners. I realize, and I know I've taken 100 shots. You're trying to skate around the issue of the responsibilities that you have as a Board of County Commissioner and a Board of Health. It's not that I'm trying not to do my job and shirk my responsibilities. It's that I personally feel that there are people better qualified to serve as Board of Health members in this county than county commissioners. I'm not particularly concerned what other counties do. I think we need to do what's right for our county. And I believe seating a new Board of Health is the right thing to do. I am concerned about the timing. I certainly would support postponing this item of business for a little while, but I can't see postponing it for very long. Certainly this COVID thing has brought it all to a head. It's clear that we as commissioners aren't as informed about public health as we should be, or health matters in this county, or we wouldn't be talking about MRC and what they do and don't do. So go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, what's going to be different if we put this off for a month? Why would we not want to face it
Okay,
today?
the only reason I would consider putting it off, I wasn't thinking about a month, but would be to allow Dr. Brown to get his feet on the ground. But this is not a Dr. Brown discussion. It's not a Dr. Brown issue. So I thought about the same thing while we were talking, is what's going to make it different now and in 3 or 4, 2 weeks, 4 weeks or whatever. So
Okay, I have a
good point.
I
Go
have
ahead,
a
sir.
point to make on that. Personally, we need to put it off because I want to hear options from Dr. Brown. There's lots of ways to skin the cat. I am not about, Mary Ellen or Tom or Jay, willing to give up my responsibility to the taxpayers to make decisions. That's what we're paid to do. Now you can, and what a leader does, a decision maker does, at all levels. The governor is not smart in public health. He takes advice from his public health agency, in effect, making a comparison. We do the same thing. We take advice because we have to balance the risk versus reward issues, because if you let it all be homogenous and get options from the public health, I want the best options possible to keep people safe in this county from the COVID virus. I don't want you to be injured. I don't want my wife. You know my wife very well. The last thing I want is to have her come down with the disease. So we have to make the trades, though, on what does the impact of how you enforce those rules. You know, a lot of it, Jay pointed that out earlier, is on we can't walk down the street and say, okay, we don't have enough money and time to hire a police force, a whole separate force to enforce a letter of the law. And if you read the laws that the governor puts out, he sidesteps a lot when he does that, and he says it's recommended. He puts an order out that has us, gives the counties the ability to do it. Otherwise, he could.
I disagree, sir.
Well, I know, but this is a discussion. So the point is, we have to have that discussion in order for us to make the right decision on how we organize and get the trades made so that we can protect all the county, every citizen at every level and I heard our public health director suggesting a lot of things for us to consider. He wants to meet all of the people. He wants to understand the elderly people as well, and where they are, what the orders mean to them. He wants to get those discussions, get advice. So I want to wait before we make a decision that says, all right, let's just abandon this right now. And from a county commissioner point of view, we will have to appoint somebody that we haven't even had a chance to look at applicants on.
As to that, I think all I can say is I have talked to many citizens, and we have Board of County Commissioners that need to leave the Board of Health now. And we have people who are educated and willing to volunteer to be on a Board of Health. We have a brand new director of public health. I think that's separate.
Okay.
And let's concentrate on serving our community by people who are educated and who know this community,
Okay.
because they've been doing it.
Mr. Prince, go ahead.
I have for a long time not been a fan of the commissioners acting in the dual role. We're managers. That's what we do as Board of County Commissioners. We're not health professionals. My original thought was, and thank you for straightening me out on the law, was let's get professionals to join the Board of Health. That is not a legal potential. So given those two, I would feel very comfortable giving the Board of Health responsibility to medical professionals. I would feel much more comfortable than the three of us being the Board of Health. So I probably would concur that the Board of Health should be an independent agency of medical professionals who handle the Board of Health totally separate and distinct from the Board of County Commissioners, which the law I'm aware of does say, not realizing we could add more members to the Board of Health from outside members. I didn't understand that till this morning. I do remember reading that when counsel brought it to my attention, and I agree with him. So I would probably be in favor of having a separate Board of Health with medical professionals, just
So-
because I feel it's the right thing to do for the citizens.
So Colorado Revised Statutes 25-1-507 authorizes counties to either establish a county public health agency or a district public health agency. Obviously, this county had opted in the past to set up a county public health agency. My opinion, well, let me finish on the state statute thing. Statute also allows for counties under 100,000 people in population, if it's to be, the Board of Health is to be comprised of county commissioners, and obviously it's 3 because there are 3 county commissioners in counties of under 100,000. But statute does, as Clint mentioned, does not limit the number of people. Do you have a feeling for how many people you think should be on the public Board of Health if it was seated with private citizens and not elected officials?
Yes, I do, and I think it should be 5. And I came up with that when I decided, well, 3 medical professionals. And then I thought, mental health is extremely important. And so I decided we needed a mental health professional. And then I decided we needed a veterinarian because we live with wild animals. They transmit diseases.
Yeah, excuse me, but I agree with Clint a minute ago. I think we're meshing Board of County Commissioners.
I'm just
with Board of-
answering
Yeah.
Tom's
You know, I
question.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, how
So,
many, I understand.
My
the
question was,
explanation as to
yeah,
why
how
and who.
many you thought,
Yeah.
not
Five.
necessarily
Five.
the makeup
There
or,
we go.
or what comprised that. I was
that I'm
just
fine
interested in
with.
knowing how many you felt. I personally also feel like if the county commissioners are going to seat a new board, I think it should be more than 3. Obviously, it's awkward to end up on a round number. So I would support the idea of 5 as well. I'm willing to, as a commissioner, give this a little breathing room, but I would tell you that I would also be willing to put this to a vote no later than September 16th. If we don't want to do with it now, I understand that. We're talking about restructuring part of the county's organizational structure here. Certainly I've been giving it some thought. I don't want to appear to go at this lightly and not give it the appropriate thought. To Commissioner Canda's point, I truly don't see how giving a lot more time on this from Dr. Brown's perspective is relevant because it's, again, not a decision of public health. It's a decision of the county commissioners. So with that, I think that concludes the comments I have. Go ahead, sir.
If we do that, I would like to then ask for a Board of Health meeting after the 16th BOCC meeting so we can discuss the kind of things you're talking about, which would be appropriate during a Board of Health meeting that are not appropriate now. So we could discuss some at the structure would be a Board of Health. Whether to do this or not would be a county commissioner decision. So if we put that on the 16th with both items, one is a Board of Health Commission meeting after the BOCC, I think that would perfectly make good sense.
Let me ask him a question, Tom.
Sure.
Because we're putting the cart before the horse. And, if we vote to disband it, then who's the Board of Health? And timing wise. So to me, in order, actually, I want to argue with you a little bit, Tom. It's important to understand the new health director's perspective. He's not making a decision. I want to understand how he was going to meet the needs of what Mary Ellen just pointed out with the right medical staff in a public health agency that gives us advice so we can take the options and make trades for the good of this county on both sides of the fence that we have to be on. Because if we don't, then what we do, I see a problem in how we would balance the impacts. The Board of Health could go off and make a decision on something that impacts the county significantly on the other side. What if we wanted to enforce a mask law and make sure everybody conformed? How do we get the money to do that? The governor didn't give us any money when they make, to do that. And so there's options that I know that we can consider as a Board of Health to look at, so that when we understand what those might be, then we can make an informed decision whether we want to advocate our responsibility, not the authority, where we're given our responsibility. We're advocating our authority to be the public decisions there, but our responsibility still exists. We're accountable. So before I'm willing to vote plus or minus on it, we need to understand the bigger picture. That's why I'm not asking to do it over the next year. I mean, if we can get a meeting where we discuss that as a Board of Health, and then have a commissioners meeting to decide whether we want to consider staffing it, I think that's the proper way to do it.
Well, I'll move to postpone this item of business until September 16th.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to postpone this item concerning seating a new Board of Health with non-elected citizens to September 16th, the next BOCC meeting. Further discussion.
Okay, I'll
About
agree
the
with that, but I'll probably want to have a Board of Health meeting. If everybody's going to be in town.
And really, I think the Board of, just as a discussion item, sir, we have the Board of Health meeting, and then we could vote on whether to do this at the last day of the month is September. So we have an opportunity to discuss it as Board of Health. Then we have an opportunity to digest it, think it through. And I don't want to make a snap decision. It's a very important decision. I just want to do what's right for the county. So I would concur.
Further discussion on the postponement.
Can I say it?
If it pertains to postponing this until September 16th, yes.
So if you postpone this till September 16th, you could meet, your meeting as the Board of Health, and then you would meet as the commissioners.
Correct.
And decide
Correct.
if you're going to,
Right.
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
Right.
okay.
As the Board of Health, we can ask a lot of questions that I'd really like to ask today, but it's really not appropriate because we're BOCC right now, not Board of Health. So in the Board of Health issue, then we can talk about a lot of structure and things that we really can't discuss now.
But you can do it all on the 16th.
Well,
No.
it depends on when the Board of Health meeting is scheduled. We're talking about the possibility of having a Board of Health meeting prior to voting on whether or not to seat a new Board of Health on the 16th.
See, Mary Ellen, as a Board of Health, we can ask the questions that we've been skirting. We've been hitting in and out, which is not proper, the way to handle it. We need to have more depth because we can understand how we would use the MRC, or we could understand how to get a volunteer in, or we could understand what's the advantages of having just no commissioners clear off the board. No decision capability, you see. So those have to be discussed because that's what you pay us to do as a taxpayer. That's what our job is. So we can do that.
So my perception, my anticipation would be that if the commissioners vote to seat a new Board of Health, it will be after the selection of new potential members. I don't see us saying, okay, on the 16th, we are now dissolving Board of Health. And now we go 3 or 4 weeks without a Board of Health. I think that we go through the process. We continue to serve as a Board of Health until we appoint new board members at that point.
That's right.
At a commissioner meeting, then we'd introduce a resolution to dissolve the current Board of Health and a resolution to establish a new Board of Health with new appointed members.
Right.
That's how I would see the process. I don't want to be in some lame duck period of a month or 6 weeks
Right.
without a Board of Health. That would be irresponsible. The other thing I was going to say in response to Commissioner Canada's remarks was that nothing's changing as far as the structure or the agency, or none of that's changing. All we're talking about is changing who is going to serve as the Board of Health. Everything else can stay in place or be changed if the appropriate people think so.
Right.
Dr. Brown thinks something needs to be changed. that goes through the Board of Health. Doesn't matter who's sitting
That's right.
at the Board of Health. I know we're going to get chastised for abdicating our responsibility. We're moving, if this were to pass, would be handing that responsibility to a group of other people. We don't technically, we don't get paid to be Board of Health members. We get paid to be county commissioners. And so I just think that we need to continue to serve in our role if the motion were to pass to seat a new Board of Health until those new members were selected. I'm not suggesting that we terminate the Board of Health now and then start a new one later. So.
But most importantly, the overall overriding issue, the whole thing is, the question will come down to one thing and one thing only in my mind. I'm not talking for you. My mind is, what is the best way to serve the constituency of this county? And if it's with professional advising us as the Board of Health, that's one potential, or advocating it to a professional group that will handle it on our behalf. And when I say our behalf, the county's behalf.
Right.
It comes down to just one thing and one thing only: what is best for this county,
Right.
in my opinion, and I will disregard all the rest of it.
Mine too, by the way.
I know, it's
Yeah.
for all of us. I recognize that.
Yeah, I've certainly had communications, most of them via email. Well, if you see the new Board of Health member, they need to be certified in this and they need to be certified in that. That's one individual's opinion. I don't happen to agree with it. If they choose to go and get certified, go through the ICS courses, that's their business. It's certainly, in my opinion, would not be a prerequisite to be considered for a seat on a new board, if that's what.
So what are we voting on
I
here?
think we're really.
We're
ought to
discussing on whether or
postpone.
not to postpone.
Right.
So I think we
Let's
probably
do it.
ought to go ahead and
Yeah.
call for the question.
So with that, if there's no further discussion, I do have to ask for public comment because this is it's a main motion. It's a subsidiary motion, but introduced as a main motion. Is there any public comment about the motion to postpone?
How do you hear that?
Hearing none, then we will proceed to vote.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vern. All in favor of postponing until September 16th, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries, so this will be back on the agenda on September the 16th. I'm assuming there will,
I will invite you to.
BOH Chairman Kanda will convene a Board of Health meeting between now and then, it sounds like.
What I said.
So we will defer decision on this until the 16th. All right? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you
in.
for coming
Appreciate
in,
that.
and thanks for the information you've given me over the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for all your work.
It's out of your way.
Okay, next item of business is consideration of COVID compensation for public health workers. This is on the agenda because I think it's one of many actions that we're going to have to consider. And so I think we need to decide how we want to do that. And that is voting on whether or not to submit an expense to DOLA for reimbursement on the CARES Act. Now, are we going to do that through committee?
How do we differentiate what's eligible?
Right.
by
That's
normal
where I'm going right
period?
now with this, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I think this question is perfectly valid and appropriate. I feel it needs to go through the CARES Act committee that we have, and it should be reimbursed through the CARES Act. If the committee agrees that it is a legitimate expense, I don't believe it should be a BOCC decision. It should be a CARES Act committee decision whether to submit this or not.
I
Okay.
agree.
So I would defer this
Okay,
to.
and I disagree, and I'll explain why. We are talking about the county paying county employees for work performed on behalf of the county. Whether or not this gets submitted for reimbursement is a committee's decision, in my opinion. It's not the committee's decision whether to pay county employees. I think that's a county responsibility. But I do think if we decide to pay this extra hours worked on COVID outside of their regular job, that's a county responsibility. Then I think it's also the county's responsibility to submit that expense to that committee for reimbursement.
Depends, and I agree with you from one point of view, Tom. That's not a bad reasoning. It's good. The problem is if they're salaried people, you
They're
can't
not.
split it.
They're not.
And
They're
if they're
hourly.
not, if they're hourly, then you gotta, if they're paid to do the job. And it's COVID related, they got an 8-hour period that we're paying them for regardless of whether it's COVID or not, because that's their job. And then you're talking overtime above that is what would be reimbursed from a COVID point of view, because, or
Right.
unless we don't pay overtime, in which we don't, in that we do compensate them for time off.
I have a couple
So it'd
questions.
be an issue.
Do we have a scope of how much money we're talking about?
We do. I'll just estimate it for you here.
That's
Real
fine.
quick. It'd be about $2,200, which that would be eligible for
Is that up till
reimbursement.
now or what we're projecting forward?
That's through August vouchers, no projection there.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, sir.
Okay, fine.
I feel it's directly COVID related. It's expenses that were not budgeted. It meets the 3 criteria.
Absolutely.
I think it's, and
That's
I'm
what
certainly
I'm
not going to speak for the 5-member committee, but I suspect they're going to go very reasonable. It's going to come out of county general anyway, our money to pay this, and then hope that we get reimbursed by DOLA through the CARES Act. So my feeling is this is absolutely meets the 3 requirements. You know, first I'd like, before overriding everything, I commend these professionals for stepping forward and putting in the hours that were necessary to do what needed to be done. That's above and beyond. Should they be compensated for that? Absolutely, positively. So here's what I would suggest. I would suggest if the CARES Act committee says, no, we don't feel this is legitimate, I think they should come back on the table for the county commissioners to decide. But I'd rather see it go through the CARES Act committee before we do that, because to me, it seems very legitimate at this point, and I'm just one person on that committee. We'll see how the committee decides.
I agree to do that is the right way to handle it, because you got to show me personally, as on the, if it were a committee decision,
Right.
You'd have to show me that the 8 hours they spent doing COVID, they still did their county job doing something else. And so it was an extra burden during that 8-hour period. Overtime
Right.
could be another issue.
Yeah.
So that has to be discussed with that committee, not,
And that's
then
right.
we can-
And
then
how
we can
much
look
to
at it later.
reimburse the bill? Because I
Right.
agree with you. How much is a question? Should it be a time and a half? Should it be something different? That's a discussion the committee could
Right.
make and decide, let's go
And
ahead
then let them come
and ask
back
for
and then we
reimbursement
can
from
deal
DOLA
with it.
for either the 2,200, something more, something less. But I certainly feel it's a committee legitimate 3 criteria
Okay.
expense. And I would be fine if the committee rejected it to come back as a BOCC item and say, well, the committee rejected it, but we feel as the Board of County Commissioners, we need to compensate these employees. So that's the way I would prefer to see it go.
I agree with part of what you said, and that is, it, to me, from where I sit, it's a county responsibility, number one, to make a decision of whether or not to pay these employees. It's $22,130 and a little bit of change. So we're talking about $2,100. I believe it's the county's responsibility to decide whether or not to pay our employees. The committee has nothing to do with that. Then the county can go to the committee and submit that expense for reimbursement. That's how the system's designed to be worked, right?
You have a good
I don't want the committee telling us you should or shouldn't pay your county employees. I want the committee to tell us, yes, we'll submit it for reimbursement, or no, we won't.
So
We
Tom, I
can't have
agree.
it both ways.
I agree, but you got to decide what you're submitting to the committee. So when do we do that? See, we need a discussion on just what I just said, is the total amount, which is
2130.
2130, was that an 8-hour
It
day?
is not, they don't work 8-hour days.
I know.
Well, you keep saying
Well,
8 hours. I thought you
their
did
normal
know.
job. I thought you said
Outside of their normal job.
That-
Doesn't have anything to do with the
So I want to
hours.
understand how they understood that was outside their normal job. That's all. so that we can submit it as a request, so that it's got half a chance of going through the committee.
Right. But we're not
But
going to
we're not
submit
having
it
that
to a,
discussion now.
we're not
Yeah,
going to
I
submit it
see
to the
what you're
committee
talking
unless
about.
it's an expense.
Yeah.
I see what you're
I
talking
agree
about.
with that.
So
The question, it's really two parts.
it is.
The
Well,
first question is, no, in my opinion, it is. The first part is we had employees who did an excessive amount of work over and above their normal duties. Should they be compensated? If the answer is yes to that, we are compensated.
Right.
And the second part, we just happen to be lucky enough
We can go
that
get
there's a
reimbursed for it.
program out there
Right.
that we will probably
Right.
get reimbursed
I
for.
agree.
Yeah.
So I could, I was saying
Yeah.
just submit it to CARES Act, but I see your point and I think it's valid.
Right.
I don't have an issue with it. We're not
So-
talking about a huge amount of
Yeah,
money.
Right, and
Right.
that was my point, is we have to figure out what we're asking the committee for, so that we can do it. I
Yeah.
don't want to have that discussion with them and say, part of that wasn't included because they had normal stuff they were doing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It
Right.
was all
But the
close.
most important thing is these folks stepped up above and beyond what they were required to do. Our health director at the time was non-existent, disappeared for most of the time during this. The hourly employees, instead of going, hey, that's not my job, which they easily could have done,
Right.
instead, no, I'm stepping up and I'm doing what we need to do. True professionals.
Okay.
I'm willing to change my opinion
Yeah.
based on what you said.
Yeah, and when you said it's really a two-part question, I wanted to object because it's really not. We are deciding whether or not to pay these employees.
That's
End
part-
of discussion.
that's part
No,
one.
that's all. That's all the motion, or that's all that's on the agenda.
I get it.
Then
I get
the
it.
subsequent part of that then would be a conversation of,
We're
do we
lucky
submit it or
enough-
not?
Right.
As I
But-
said, we're lucky enough
Right.
to potentially get reimbursed
Sure.
for it.
I'm convinced clearly that these are reimbursable expenses. Counselor, go ahead.
I'm just, if you go that way and make that decision and then submit it to the committee, do you feel comfortable voting on it as members of the committee, or do you disqualify yourself?
Right, that's an issue.
No, we've already agreed with that we're all representing our entities on that committee. So, no, I won't recuse myself from it.
No, we're not.
No,
No, we're not. We are not representing
That's right.
ourselves on that committee. We are committee members only based on council recommendation. I am not a commissioner when I sit on
Okay.
that committee.
that's right.
So then there's no reason to recuse yourself
That's
from the vote.
exactly how I feel.
Right, and we
Yeah.
set
Just
it up
wanted
the
to
way
be
you
sure
suggested.
You were gonna not have a quorum if you did it, but as long as
Right,
you all can vote,
Right.
then that's
yeah.
fine.
And
Okay. So,
internally, we all had that, it's in the IGA, we've all agreed to that.
Right.
So let me just put out the facts
apologize.
so that you know what we're talking about, okay? There are 3 people in that office that had worked outside of their regular job and not been paid by another grant.
Right.
These are the hours that are eligible for that. They did work outside of their regular hours and got paid by a grant. Those hours are not eligible.
All right,
These are hours they worked and did not get paid for at all.
okay.
Okay? If you want the dollar amounts, I can give those
I
to
don't
you,
need-
but
I don't want
it
that.
totals $21.30.
I move that the county pay the public health employees directly related to the discussion we're having, the over and above their normal salary that's not reimbursed, not to exceed, I'm going to say 2,300 in case there's a little fudge there, to compensate them for the extra work they did during the COVID crisis.
I'll second it because I
Okay.
want to talk.
It's been
more
moved
about
and
it.
seconded to authorize paying the public health employees for hours worked above their regular work day, which I made that very clear to them, and that
Not to
I'm going to
exceed.
make an assumption because these numbers were built on time and a half for some hours and half time for some hours that they were
I
paid for.
just said not to exceed
Yeah,
2,300.
All right, from a discussion point of view,
No.
$2,200, where's it coming from? If we don't get
It's gonna
reimbursed,
come from the
General fund.
okay? And so we could not be reimbursed.
And that, you know what? It's
That-
like
So
every-
I'm just making sure we're all comfortable with
And that's
not
going to
being
be every
reimbursed.
decision that's
Sure.
made.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
You know, so, but they deserve it. They were professionals. They stepped up.
Okay, so
They
we're,
could've
whether or
easily
not
said,
we're reimbursed, we're gonna pay them. That's the
Yeah.
point.
We're going to pay them regardless.
Yeah, again,
right.
we're not voting on whether or not we're
That's
going to get
right.
reimbursed.
That's
We're
what I
voting
do
on whether or not we're
Phase
going to pay
two,
them.
just should
Right.
we
Yeah.
pay them?
And for all transparency, I've reached out to Mr. Vernon, I've reached out to Mr. Alex, And in Road and Bridge, I said, what we
Right,
need to
who
know
else?
is anybody that's worked outside of their regular job on COVID, we need to know those hours because we're willing to pay for those hours
Right.
spent. Comments, sir?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was coming up.
Oh.
You wanted public comment.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to have public comment. So,
Been moved and seconded.
yeah, certainly have reached out to other county departments and said the same thing. If this is your circumstance and your people have worked above and beyond and they haven't been paid by another grant, which happens to meet the federal requirements from the Treasury.
So right now, we have got no input other than public health.
Alex gave me some hours. I didn't get them onto here because this agenda item was specifically for public
So we'll
health.
have to consider that later.
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
Let's vote.
So, well, we're going to have public comment
I know.
before we vote. So, any public comment pertaining to this item of business? Hearing none, then we'll proceed to vote on the motion, which is to pay the public health employees not to exceed $2,300 for time worked beyond their regular workday on COVID-related matters. All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries. I will convey that to Ms. Donna and we'll move forward. Next item of business, consideration of waiving landfill fees for Silver Cliff and West Cliff cleanup days.
I move we waive the land fees for Silver Cliff and West Cliff on cleanup day.
I'm going to second it, but I'm not sure we need to even do it as a motion. We've already approved it for both counties,
We did it.
both towns. I thought we did. And then Westcliff took it off the table because of COVID-related issues.
I thought that was the issue. Oh,
Okay, I'll second it. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. I haven't heard anything to do it
I
again.
have a gut feeling that you're right. I didn't go back and look. I don't know what meeting that would have occurred at, so.
I
I
do
don't know.
remember it, and then we were a little perturbed that
yeah, I remember
Westcliff,
that.
after they came and asked us for, it, we
Right.
approved it, and they took it back off the table. The 2 days, just FYI, are September 12th is Westcliff, it's a Saturday. September 19th is Silver Cliff. They have restrictions on what could be taken to the landfill. We've done it every year, so I certainly strongly advocate that we approve this.
Okay. Further discussion? Public comment? You're fine. If you get some, let us know. Yeah, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote again, probably as a safety net. I agree with you, Commissioner Prince. I would probably have already done this, but we'll vote on it again. All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries. So we will waive the landfill fees for those 2 cleanup days. Next item of business, discussion of a county policy concerning use of county vehicles.
This is a discussion, it's not a consideration.
That's correct.
All right.
Yep.
Long overdue.
Pardon?
Long
Oh,
overdue.
yeah, I think it
Yeah,
is
We
too.
need a policy. So what's our discussion?
Eventually, I hope we get a consideration of adopting a
So-
policy. We don't have one.
Right, so the discussion here is to decide how we're going to handle it forward, or rather than, are we going to get into some nuts and
Probably handle
bolts?
forward. We're not going to go back to
Right.
people who took our
No, that's what I mean.
home.
Yeah.
No, that's what I mean, it's a process to get to a policy.
Right, that's what I think.
Correct.
Yeah,
I
I just
agree.
think we need to start this discussion. It was brought up, I guess our new OEM is driving that vehicle, the OEM vehicle, back and forth to home. I didn't know anything about that. I don't know where that came from. And I thought, well, you can't scream at somebody if they're doing something that we don't even have a policy that regard
Right.
to, that.
I know a little bit about that, but that's a good point that
Um,
came up, because I know that they had an issue with the oil in it or something, I don't know, and they didn't get it done and cleaned up or something,
Right.
but regardless, we need a policy
Right.
that says, just like the sheriff's department has policy for their vehicles that they use.
So here's my thought. My thought is the only time a company vehicle ought to be used is during company business. What is company business? Because you have to define that if you're going to make that kind of rule. Company business would be doing your job. Jackie takes the company vehicle out to inspect the septic. Company company use would be bringing it to get an oil change, a maintenance, that kind of thing. But it should never be used for personal use.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Okay.
But we gotta get-
I want to back up. I'm almost to rule myself out of order, but I think it's
I'll do it for
germane.
you. Give me the
Thank
thing.
you.
Hit it
So
once.
and I'm not being accusatory, I just need to know, did you indicate to Adrian Washington he could drive that
No,
pickup?
he just
So
came by.
he
and-
took it.
He just
just
came by
did
and
it.
said, I got an issue with this truck because, he went to a fire and it was leaking oil or something. I can't remember what.
The last thing I heard, it broke down above your house on the way to his house.
It didn't break down that I know of it. I don't know who's saying what. who-
Go ahead, Vern, if you have knowledge.
Adrian Washington drove it home and found a significant oil leak underneath his vehicle. That's why it's out of service right now, but that's the chain of events. He was
Yeah,
driving
yeah.
and drove it home.
Okay.
And he found the
Okay,
leak.
so he didn't have a leak before he took it home.
And I don't even know why.
Well, it
why
has
did
had
that.
a leak, yeah.
It's got a history. If there was a lemon law, it would have probably applied.
Do you know, was there towing involved in that? Because we got a,
Road and Bridge towed it to a
Took it down to Pharisee.
okay, because I did not follow up with Donna. We approved a voucher this morning for a towing bill for $440 from a non-local towing company.
Oh,
Do you know anything about that?
Is that on
Just-
that?
Okay.
For that truck?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't ask, so.
I don't know.
But anyway, again, that's not really pertinent to
No, it's just we got.
whether or not we need a policy. It just
Right.
came out of this whole thing of,
So what the process ought to be, then we got to look at the vehicles. There's different classes, they're everywhere. What kind of, where do we get we're gonna have to get some recommendations from agencies or whatever, because there may be a need, like the sheriff. I mean,
well,
he's
he's elected official,
It's
so
not
it
what I
doesn't
mean.
matter.
I'm just saying what he did. He uses vehicles for certain
Right.
things and they go home with them because of whatever the issue is. Is there anything like that now? I know the county road and bridge. I have some issues with them taking motor graders out back and forth when you could leave them somewhere and then have a
That's
county
not
vehicle.
public, that's not personal.
My point is,
use,
Yeah.
though.
no, it isn't. But my point is, they depends on what they do to get there may be a need to have them base it somewhere. Maybe it's at their house. I don't know.
And I understand what you're saying. I would say, for example, if Jackie Hobby, and I'm just picking on her because I know
It's easy.
Okay. She has a septic inspection at 7 a.m.
Mhm.
and it's out near her house. If she brought the company vehicle home, because the use would be first thing in the morning, it's just inefficient for her to come all the way in and then
Save
all the way
money.
back again.
There's
That
issues.
could be an exception
That's right.
to personal use, because it really isn't personal.
So we write that
use.
into the policy.
That's exactly right. So I think rather than going department to department, I think just an overall
Maybe it's an
basis.
overall way to
We
do
may
it.
not
Sure.
use a vehicle for personal use, a company vehicle for personal use, not a county vehicle for personal use.
That's right.
And then we could put exceptions in, however,
If circumstances.
some circumstances may require that it makes sense to do that,
Yeah,
but it just
I
set the
agree.
policy.
So how do you want to handle this? This is a discussion. We're
It's a
going to go vote on
discussion.
it at the
Just
next
talking.
meeting, put it
Yeah, I'm
on
just throwing out my
for
idea.
consideration on our next meeting.
Well, yeah, I would be willing to make a stab at writing a policy for these vehicles. There are so many, whatabouts.
Right.
I don't really want to deal with a bunch of exceptions. I'd rather have the exceptions written into the policy so that it's not an exception. Here's policy 6A. You may take a vehicle home if you are going to use that same vehicle for business the following day, whatever, so that we don't keep saying, well, we'll deal with this as an exception
Understand.
as most we
Understand what
can.
you're saying.
I'd guarantee you those Wetmore road and bridge vehicles have been used for personal use historically because we don't have a policy,
That's right.
right? So how can you scream and yell at anybody?
We could talk to council about this, but when a company vehicle is used for personal business, it's called a frolic. And if in fact, Clint, please jump in, that may affect our insurance. Would you agree with that?
It depends on what the insurance policy says. I don't know what the
Yeah.
language
Right.
is
But typically you would assume the policy was written for coverage of
on business.
on business
Not
use.
personal
So I don't know. I think if I'm wrong, somebody jump in here, the county would include road and bridge, human services, assessor, planning and zoning. No, I'm sorry, not assessor. That's elected official. Planning and zoning,
Public health,
public health,
OEM.
no, and DH, I said
Yeah,
human services,
OEM,
OEM.
uh,
I think those are the 6
those are the only,
areas that we need to have, in my opinion, a policy regarding the use of.
Long overdue, it needs to be done. You want to take a stab at it?
Now,
Greg?
what the sheriff does, we could model after that. if
take
we
a look
want.
at it and see
But,
what his issue, how he did it, or other agencies.
It gets, that becomes, and I've had this conversation with Mr.
Fire
Vernon sitting right
department,
back
too.
there. And so I want to throw this out there because I believe there's an argument to be made on the other side of elected officials' vehicles. Should our policy govern their vehicles?
I think it certainly can. We buy them for them.
We buy them, we insure them, we put fuel in them,
See, the
I think we
fire
should-
we
chief
maintenance and repair.
has a
Here's what
vehicle.
Yeah,
what
but
I
that's a
would-
special tax
I know.
district. That has
I
nothing
know,
to do with us.
well, see, it's still,
So
they
let's
still have a
ask-
policy. I'm just suggesting it's something to look at, how they handle.
Okay,
Okay, so here's
Yeah.
what I think. I think we need an overall county vehicle policy, period.
Yeah.
And I think the elected officials need to meet with us or have input into how that
Okay.
policy should be written. I mean, I understand the sheriff allows deputies to take police vehicles home, but there's a reason for that.
Sure.
Because with that vehicle being in front of the person's house, it's going to cut down crime in that area. This is maybe a good thing, but it doesn't apply to a road and bridge
Right.
pickup truck.
right.
So, I mean, I think we need to have elected officials' input into how
Sure.
to devise this policy. But I personally feel we need a policy for everybody. I don't care whether you're elected officials or
So this is a discussion. So what are we gonna do now?
It's be county-owned vehicles,
county-owned
correct?
vehicles. Absolutely.
So
Let's put it
I'll
on.
work on it and I'll reach out to those elected officials
I think
and
that's-
ask them
I
for
think
their
that's the
input.
We
way
get
or-
on another agenda item.
Yeah,
down
and
the
then
road.
at some point we'll
Well,
bring it back.
We may even decide to have a workshop and have the elected officials
Sure.
come in and we can discuss it and come up with a policy we can all live
Right.
with. I mean, we're not looking to hurt anybody.
Right.
Let's get input.
This is way overdue.
Yeah, I mean, and then another thought, a question is, I think needs to be addressed is, use of a county vehicle by a non-department person. To me, that's covered by, if it's a county employee, they can use a vehicle. It might be Road and Bridge using DHS's vehicle or DHS using, God, they wouldn't use a coroner's vehicle, would they? No. So, you know,
But it still applies.
yeah,
No, I think this is right. Let's start working on it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be an evolutionary process.
right.
It'll probably, well, even though we put it in place, I'm gonna bet that
Probably be some
fairly quickly, we're
exclusions.
gonna need to amend it to find things we didn't think about or things we thought about that we need to modify.
Right.
But let's get the process rolling.
Yeah, Vern and I had a conversation and he had a great point and it was about who owns, let's say, for example, because he's sitting right here as a deputy coroner, who owns a coroner's vehicle?
Who bought it?
FEMA?
Okay, then it's a county vehicle.
Who pays the insurance? Who pays fuel? Who pays,
Accountability.
whose name's on the title? That's what we'd have to go back
And
to.
that's where.
And I
that's where
suspect
all our-
it's county.
Well, it is.
But-
It is.
I signed the paperwork, so I haven't seen the title, but the
I'm sure
assumption
it
is.
is.
So I think that's how we would have to decide. And if the coroner wants input into that policy
Right.
to cover his vehicles, then so be it.
He's an elected official.
Sure, so be it. We could say,
Definitely.
county policies governing vehicles for elected officials and list them and have those policies. I'm just trying to
Policy.
set up a framework
And I
so I'm not shooting in the dark.
agree with you, and I think the policy could be different for each area.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, I
Absolutely.
think we need input, and
Yeah.
we need to come up with a policy for each area, and knowing that it's a work in progress, and over time, we're gonna modify it till we come up with something that really works.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I indicated to Vernon, I'm not opposed to an employee taking a vehicle home if it's appropriate.
And that's
And
exactly
the only way
right.
we know if it's appropriate or not is if we have a policy.
That's
so-
exactly right.
That was,
Thank
That
you
was
for
the
taking
impetus
that
behind
on,
that, but,
Mr. Chairman.
so, okay, I will work on drafting and reaching out to the elected officials kind of in concert to come up with something to bring back before the commissioners. Yes, sir, go
Can I
ahead.
request a 3-minute?
You may, sir. Oh, okay. Just got my answer on the towing bill, which I think was for 400 and some. And I apologize, I should have looked. I had a question about it, but didn't ask it, and that was for Road and Bridge to tow a grader down in Wetmore that broke down. So that's why I didn't recognize
it's
the
so
towing
much.
company, because it came from out of the county. So with that, if there are no objections, we'll stand in recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
No, we'll go ahead. Meeting will resume. We are back with the August 28th, 2020 meeting. The time is 10:45. Our next item of business is discussion of the annual COLA or salary increases for 2021. This is a pre-budget discussion, obviously. Ms. Donna reached out to all three of us about what we would give her for some direction for a potential, we'll call it a raise. Said she had not heard back from Bill or Jay. I responded.
Yeah,
I
was waiting to
responded
have the
pretty
discussion.
conservatively because
Right.
I wasn't speaking on behalf of the commission. So I just told her from my perspective, when she said she hadn't heard back, put in 1%, let's go from there.
Yeah, the reason I didn't respond, because I did ask the question, although I still don't have the answer, what's our projected revenues? I'm very hesitant to suggest any kind of a salary increase without understanding what the suggested revenues are. Yesterday, I learned from Donna when I spoke with her that our revenues are going to be up significantly. Now, I haven't heard that from JD, but
Well,
Donna
by
gave me
significantly, how would you?
$100,000.
Okay, I was gonna say significantly to me would be 10%.
Okay.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but that's just my perception of
understand.
it. So,
But if you look at, to the $100,000 or so, and that's Donna presumption, and I'm certainly not trying to put words in Donna's mouth by any means, and I may have misunderstood. So Donna, if you're listening and you're fuming because I'm saying the wrong thing, send us an email or come in and yell at me. That's fine. But really the one who needs to say to us, I think, based upon revenues from last year, we feel revenues for taxes will be up or down and percentage wise. I really would like that information before I promote a salary increase. Now, looking back at the history, last 2 years was a 1% increase. That didn't even keep up with inflation, I'm sure. So
We had a discussion about that in detail.
I would really like to give a viable raise to the county, provided we can afford it. And that's my question. Can we afford it? So that's my comment.
I'd
Well-
like to know what the cost of living increase is nationwide right now, or government-wide is.
well, the CPI index for Colorado, the change in the CPI index for Colorado as of July 31st was 1.6% for Colorado.
But does the CPI for Colorado, is that the same percentage increase that Custer County will
Not
get?
necessarily. That's just
Because
a
that's where
data
the
point.
money's coming from. So
No,
I'm less concerned about the CPI. I'm more concerned about revenues coming in and what we anticipate for 2021. So that's just the way I'm
Right.
thinking.
so she wasn't, I mean, she had to get these budget packets out.
Right.
She didn't represent that as that was going to be your raise. That was a figure
I
that
agree.
they could work on their budget. That doesn't mean we
Yeah, I don't have
can't
any
change it.
problem just leaving it at 1%
we're
right
not-
now and moving on. And
we're
we'll have
not-
that discussion in detail that we
During
can
the
sit down.
budget hearings.
Yeah.
We're not setting the salary
Right.
schedule today. That's just a discussion about,
And I think that's fair.
do we want to leave it at the 1%? Do you want to have Donna tell the department heads, well, why don't you figure in a 2% raise or 3%, whatever that number looks like? I would propose 2% going back and looking at a 2% raise, even though we don't know what the revenues are. This is August.
I understand.
It's hard for JD to tell us, well, boys, you're going to be at 7.4 million in August.
I agree. I absolutely
Eventually
agree.
we'll get that, but it'll be the 1st of October, most likely.
I agree.
So I don't know. I had a long protracted conversation with our auditor. I just said, I know you're not our financial advisor, but I'm just asking you because you're in the finance world
Right.
about this. And the crux of that conversation was really that we are a service organization. We provide services to this county.
That's right.
And our employees provide those services. And he said that should set the stage for you valuing your employees at some level. He certainly didn't say what that level looked like. He just said, you know, that's philosophically, he said, that's how I would recommend you guys kind of look at this whole thing is if you're a service provider for your citizens and your employees are the ones that are doing it and not the three commissioners, then we need to compensate appropriately and fairly was basically that conversation. So I do think the CPI has something to do with it. It is irrespective of what our revenue streams are, but that doesn't matter. Our county employees don't get to choose to live their lives financially based on our revenue streams. They got to pay prices at the gas pump and at the grocery store and anywhere else. And so,
See that, I agree. That's the discussion we need to have. And additionally, we want to keep employees employed. We don't want to have a turn. We got to pay them for the service they provide, and we got to keep it and make the service the best it can for the money we have.
right.
So we got to make that choice.
And I agree with what both you saying, but it still comes back to me, do we have the money
Right.
to spend? I
You
mean,
you can't spend money you
yeah,
don't
so-
have.
Right. So my feeling would be if we're just going to pull a number out of the air, I would say let's go back to the supervisors or with the budget packages at 2%, not 1%, and keep our fingers crossed that we might even go back and say, let's make it 3 if once we find that that would be a responsible thing to do. 2 is just as good a guess
Well,
as
yeah,
1. So what's the difference?
I agree. Let's do that. And the reason is we need enough of an impact so that people are for it. We have to make trades because if we're going to pay that, where does it come from?
Yeah, it either comes from increased
That's
revenues
right.
or we transfer
trade
money.
something else out of
Right.
somebody else's pocket. So we
And
got to
that's
get
exactly
people
right.
thinking, and that's what you do in the budget
Right.
hearing.
And
So
that's
let's,
exactly right.
let's leave it at 2. That's my recommendation.
Well, we can't leave it at 2
No, let's
because
make
it's
it
at
2.
1. And I would agree. 1% we know is below the CPI for Colorado.
They lost money working for us.
That's
with
right.
that.
They lost money working for us this year or will next year. And I think it's right now, as premature and early as it is, and we're this far out of the budget hearing, I just don't want this to be a morale killer to say, well, that's all we're going to get is 1%. It
Right.
doesn't have anything to do with that. She
We haven't
wanted to
even
figure.
decided it yet.
So I would agree that maybe we go back and ask her to reach out at 2% instead of 1 and let them budget that in. We may cut it back to 1, but we may boost it to 3.
That's
That's
exactly what I
right.
was saying.
So
We
let's-
just don't.
it's
Or
a num-
5.
It's a
Let's
good
start
number
at
to
2.
work with.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's look.
Yeah. So
And if JD comes in October with some ridiculously high number, we may go higher than 3. I mean,
Sure,
we're not
that's
hung
right.
at 1, 2, or 3.
I just think because we have no idea, we
That's
need to
right.
be somewhat conservative.
I'm fine with
uh,
conservative at 2.
Okay, so it was a discussion item, so I will visit with Donna a little more about that. The CPI index in January, from January 2018 to January, or 2019 to January 21 was 2.5. And that's gone down to 1.6.
Not
So
surprised
kind
with
of
COVID.
interesting, but yeah, so I will
Okay.
carry that message forward.
Perfect.
Next item of business is consideration of signing the Fremont Humane Society Agreement.
I moved.
I'm assuming you both looked at it
I
because
did.
it was sent to you
I did.
some days ago.
It's
what's the group's
basically a
pleasure?
renewal of the last year one. I move that we approve the Humane Society of Fremont County impound agreement for the year 2021.
Okay. I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve and sign the Humane Society of Fremont County, Inc. impound agreement with Custer County. Further discussion. We've already, I think, signed the fiscal portion of this document.
There was a time when they were concerned about taking our animals. Obviously, they stepped up to the plate. I just want to publicly tell them how much I appreciate them helping us with our lost and stray animals.
Okay, further discussion? Burns, public comment? Do we have any public comment on the Humane Society agreement?
I'm not hearing any public comment.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of signing the agreement to say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries. There's 2 copies. I've sent an email to our admin assistant that if this motion carried, we needed to make sure we got these back to Mr. Ray at Fremont Humane, so.
Hmm.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of the sale price for the property out in Rosita. We've had some interest. Somebody sent Mrs. Hobby an email indicating that they would be interested in purchasing that property. We had put that on the market. We had notified all the adjoining landowners in February of 2019. We did not get any response from that. At that time, that price that was submitted through the commissioners was $88,000. It's 35 acres. I've spoken with our assessor. He currently believes that $2,000 an acre is a reasonable price, which would bring that price down to $70,000. Obviously, we didn't have any interest at $88,000. My belief is that if we want to move forward with this, we're going to have to re-contact all the adjoining landowners, post this in the paper, and go through that process again. If these folks are interested at whatever price, minimum price we put in, so be it. If they're not, then we've spent some more money on trying to sell this property. We have a fly in the ointment that we didn't have last time.
Tell me.
We have signed a letter of intent to install a broadband tower on this property. That would have to be written into whatever legal documents that, in my opinion, I'm sorry, it's my opinion that we should honor that letter of intent and put a rider in, I guess, on some kind of a real estate deal,
It's a deed restriction.
deed restriction that tower site is still under consideration and access to and from that. I look to council.
Yeah, that would be fine. We'd have to do it that way. How much land do we need?
There's we need, I say we,
About 200 square feet.
yeah, it's 20 by 20. The actual footprint's 400 square feet, but they may also put a fuel supply tank
And a
outside
right
of
of
that.
way in.
Well, I think there should just be a deeded or an easement that's part of the deed that.
Okay, so an easement to include the site itself
The
plus
site itself
egress?
and access.
Okay. Okay, so I would guess that when we announce this to the public, we would just say that the sale of this property would include a deed restriction of an easement for a broadband tower or telecommunications easement. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, I
Who-
can work on the wording of it if
Okay.
that's what you want.
Okay.
You said you had somebody wanting to buy it, Tom?
A person wrote an email to Jackie Hobby wanting to buy it, yes.
And then was
Showed an
asking for a
interest. We are
price.
interested in,
Just wanted to know if we.
they were interested in buying that 35 acres. So I will forward you all that stuff from February of 2019, Clint,
Alright.
if you want. And then Dale Mullen would probably, I know he has the GPS coordinates for that site and would have some feel for the easement, access easement. I mean, I walked it personally, unless something changed, I haven't seen the engineering on that site yet, but yes, sir.
I would like to suggest that we lower the initial price, the threshold price to 60,000 because I would consider the tower a detriment to the value of the property. Just a thought.
Okay.
What is it now? 70 something?
70.
Well,
Well, if we
No,
went
it's
with the
not. There
2,000,
isn't a
it's
value.
nothing.
Then we have a.
we
we
had it at
discussed
88.
Yeah.
That
And
was
we
at
were- And then
88.
we were talking about, the discussion item was 2,000 an acre, which would bring it down to
Oh, yeah.
70.
Chair would entertain a motion to that effect. With respect, I'd like to see the funds of this earmarked for the Justice Center.
No problem.
There we go. So I so move that.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to move forward with
60,000.
The sale of the Rosita property with a minimum price of $60,000 to include the easements for telecommunications for the
Right.
site and access. Further discussion? Public comment on the sale of the Rosita property? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of moving forward with the sale of this property not to, or a minimum price of $60,000, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. I will carry that project forward, working with council and planning and zoning director. She helped me with it last time. We've already got the legals from the last time, so we don't need to go back to JD there. Next item of business, consideration of purchasing variable message signs. Again, I would caution us, we can certainly ask ourselves the question about eligibility for reimbursement, but I don't think I think this is a county decision and not a CARES Act decision to buy signs, if that's what we're going to do. So I sent that information that Buck provided us, the town of West Cliff. My understanding is they are ordering one with the potential of ordering a second sign. They've asked the county if we are going to buy some, they would like to buy them all together because we can save about $6,000 on the 3 signs. So I would just say a couple of things. I reached out to CDOT. I contacted Bob Pfeiffer. I have not heard back from him yet. I wrote him an email and asked him if we were to buy these signs, would we be able to put these on state rights of way? I was hoping to have an answer before today. Part of me says, well, if we can't set them on the 3 highways coming into the county, then what do we do with them? Let's say, for example, if we're under a fire restriction, where would we put those? I think we could put them on private property facing a highway and
Sure.
still be pretty effective because we never see them on private property. So I think
School
people
board
would
does
notice.
that today with the sign they got. We could put it in their parking lot if we asked them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could go to private people and ask. Obviously, I think it'd be most effective in the rights of way, but
I think they'll let us do it. I don't know why they would.
well, I think it would come down to a collision liability thing if somebody ran off the
But-
highway and ran into our sign versus theirs.
That's easy.
But I was hoping to get some information from him about that. I'm guessing he probably sent that email on to the appropriate person. I don't believe he was going to give me an answer anyway, but so
In any case, we're looking at how many signs? 3.
I'm proposing 3, yes. And only because then that gives us 1 for each highway. If we're wanting to spread a COVID message, which is the purpose of us buying these, that's where we'd want to do it on the highways coming in.
So just so I understand, it would be 4 total. Silver Cliff would get 1 and the county would get 3, or 3
Correct.
total?
No, 4 total.
total.
Did-
But we would buy 3, whatever the 2 towns want to do is up to them.
Paul
Mayor
hasn't
Wenzel
indicated anything
indicated
yet.
he wanted 1 for now, so that gets us to the price threshold. Had to be more than
Got it.
3.
All right.
West Cliff is not committed one way or the other, so. And then obviously the big question is, gentlemen, right?
Yeah, we know. we
How
gonna eat it,
comfortable
or
are
we're gonna
we
get
that we're
back?
gonna get reimbursed for these? If I had to give a scale, I'm 90% sure we'll get
Okay,
reimbursed.
and I'm gonna not care, and here's why. Not care about the CARES Act. I just had to throw that in. Sorry. Come on, it's been a long morning.
It has.
It's the best I can do. I think this county needs those regardless. We're in a position now where we have a strong potential of being reimbursed for it. I would probably approve this irrespective of the possibility of getting paid back, because this is something we need to get information out to our constituency. I'm in favor of this, especially that there's a likelihood we'll get paid back, but even if we're not, I will not be totally upset.
Well, 2 years ago, we made a run at a grant to buy these signs.
And we got turned
And
down.
Well, yes and no. They said, certainly we will consider these in a grant, just not this grant.
Right.
Because it was already expended. The money had already been earmarked for that. So it was kind of put in the queue out of the EMPG grant. And they said, yeah, we'll look at it. It's a legitimate expense.
How much are they a sign? Forgot.
$15,270, $250. So we're looking at, roughly
60.
45,000. So
Yeah, well,
So,
really, the county would be responsible for 60 because
yes,
we're going to be stuck with,
With
I don't mean
bucks.
stuck. We're going to end up paying for Silver
They may
Cliffs
be
if
generous with us.
DOLA turns us down.
I'll have to follow up with that.
I think he ought
I
to
think
risk
this
it
is
with
how
us.
that process is going to work, that the town of Silver Cliff is going to buy their own. Then the county, in order to be eligible for reimbursement, we need to pay Silver Cliff.
That's my point
Right.
exactly.
And then
then-
we reimburse for 4.
Right.
And if it's turned down,
Then they ought to
we bought
reimburse us.
4.
Right.
We
So
could cut a deal with
We're
them.
on the hook
Sure.
for 4, one of them
Yeah.
earmarked for,
Right. We're on the hook,
Silver
but
Cliff.
we could push some of the burden on.
Right.
Silver
And
Cliff.
then I think here's the beauty of that. I can't say this for a fact. I believe there's a return policy. And
it's a
if we
5-year
know
warrant.
within 10 days whether or not it's reimbursed, and we put a
We can decide
20-day,
that.
21-day moratorium on using them, they're brand new, we'd probably send them back.
Okay, so
Okay,
But
now let's think about.
but that's a good
the-
point
the
about the
3
whole-
versus an extra one. Would we need an extra one for any reason? Now's our opportunity to get
but
reimbursed.
if we own them,
We own 5 now. Let's say we're gonna
Well-
go ask for 5 instead
well,
of 4.
what's the likelihood all 5 are going to be in use at the same time? See, I was going just the opposite way you're thinking. Why don't we buy 3? Because we'll have all the, and if we're not using all 3, Silver Cliff can use, I mean,
Yeah, but
Right. Well, and I had an off of the record conversation
They
with
wanna use it.
Mayor Wenzel was, hey, if you guys as a county needed 4, use ours. If we needed to, could we ask you to use one of yours? Whatever
Exactly.
that is.
could do.
we could
If
even write a
we-
little agreement between us for that.
Right.
Sorry, sir.
That's true. There could be an IGA. The price break was over 3 units.
Well,
So if we buy 4, we save $6,000.
that's half the
1,500
price.
Yeah.
Do you get a bigger break if you buy 5?
No.
Same deal.
And I'd say let's buy 4 and
So
I
now
move we
again,
buy
I
4 signs.
just want to, I'm so freaked out about this process because I don't
No.
truly understand it. We're not buying 4 unless that's what we truly want to do. Buy 4 and sell 1 to Silver Cliff.
Well, the county has to submit it. We're submitting the
Again,
4.
That's a CARES Act thing. That is not a decision.
I understand that, but we
put
get
before
stuck
the
with it.
board.
That's the
all right,
way
so
it
let me
is.
ask you this. Is Silver Cliff going to give us $15,000 to buy theirs with the hope that it's reimbursed?
No,
Who's going to pay for
I
it?
believe Silver Cliff's going to buy one for 15,000 and then come to us to get reimbursed for that.
And
But
I don't
that's-
have an
that's
issue
more
with that. And
expensive
if it's
than-
not reimbursed, who's out the 15,000?
If Silver Cliff
But-
truly pays it, then they are.
Well, and that's what you cut. We got to cut a deal with them first. We're making there's no reason in the world why we can't say we'll buy 4 of them. We're going to give you 1 of them. You pay us.
Okay. Mayor Wenzel said to me, the town of Silver Cliff's buying 1. If you guys buy 3, we hit the price point and we will save money.
Well, how
There
did
was
you mean
nothing
that,
about
Tom?
us buying all 4.
Well, the process is the county buys it.
Buys our 3.
Well, we buy our own, but if Silver Cliff wants one that's being reimbursed, it comes through the county.
Being reimbursed from,
But that's
From
not the
the
point.
DOLA.
That's not the point.
I know,
The
and
point
that's what I was
is,
trying to avoid, was trying to get the whole reimbursement DOLA conversation into whether or not we decide to buy 3 signs.
okay, I move that Custer County buy 3 signs for county use and hopefully work out an IGA in the future for sharing of signs as necessary.
I'll second it. You want the IGA written as part of the motion,
I do.
okay? Discussion.
So now Silver Cliff wants them. What are they gonna do? They're gonna
They're
ask
gonna
us to
buy
go.
one.
Yeah, but are they gonna they're gonna contact DOLA separately then?
No,
Try
no,
to
they
get
can't.
reimbursed? So want to short them out of getting reimbursed for their sign?
We wouldn't, as a committee. We have nothing.
Well, I understand it. So,
You're thinking wrong, Bill.
all right,
So
Let me try if I may.
I get it.
Okay, you're with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
Because the county's doing what the county does.
Sure,
The CARES committee,
I understand.
then we can get it all together.
Yeah.
And maybe Mayor Wenke might turn around and go, you know what, I want one too.
Yeah.
So now
Then we
we're
submit
notified,
that separately.
and
That's
we'll
all.
just,
And we-
whatever the discount is, we'll divide it per unit.
right.
So Silver Cliff
But-
gets their share back on the
But we still
discount.
have to put the money in for those 2 extra machines. County is the one that submits it,
No,
not,
We're
yeah,
gonna pay for 3.
I understand. But in the
Then I'm not
end, we
understanding.
Well,
write
you
the
said
check.
2 extra machines.
Right,
What, 2
we write the
extra-
check for all 5, period. If they want another one,
They don't.
they want one.
1.
Silver
Plus
Cliff and
3.
West Cliff may want one. It's
Well-
all, he pointed that out.
Okay, that's.
So
we'll deal with that
whatever it
first when
is,
we get
the
to
point
it.
I'm trying to make is we write the check. Period.
To reimburse
To,
the town for their expense. That is correct.
in order to get it to DOLA to reimburse
Yes.
it, they gotta show we spent the money.
We
That's
reimburse
right.
them. That's right. We don't have to buy the sign.
No,
We have to show that
we give them, we have a
reimburse them for
that's
their
right,
expense.
that we paid for their sign.
That's why I didn't want the motion to say we're gonna buy 4 signs. We're not.
I said 3.
I know you did, but that's in my argument earlier.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's something that we'll have to cross later because we're gonna be putting our name on the sign.
Exactly.
Well, that's a CARES Act thing.
It is,
Right.
really. It truly is.
It really is.
Uh,
That's beyond
okay.
this discussion.
We just need to decide whether we
We
want
want
to buy
3
3
signs.
signs or not,
That's right.
believing that we will get reimbursed.
Right,
from DOLA.
I want 3 signs.
I
Let's
do
move
too.
on.
So further discussion about that. Only other thing I would say and I meant to reach out to him this morning and I got sidetracked from 8 to 9, was to ask Gary Hyde if they would house and quote unquote manage these signs. I think it's a reasonable
That's a good.
place to do that. The second choice for me would be the sheriff's department, but that's an elected department. And so I think Road and Bridge is a place to house them and then manage them out of there. Would you guys agree with
I
that?
would agree. They're not huge.
Um,
There's a place they can put them, I'm
You know,
sure.
so, further discussion? Public comment? As a side note, these I believe will come out of capital improvement.
I agree on that.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of purchasing 3 variable message signs at $15,250 apiece, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. I will check with Donna to make sure, but I believe the conversation I had with her was will come out of capital improvement. Okay, any additional items to come before the board?
If I may, sir.
Yes.
I was at the Westcliff town meeting and almost every meeting they go to, they talk about the strategic plan. And I hate to keep bringing this up, and I know Cheryl's been invited here. They talk about how they're cohering to it, what they're doing to maintain it, how things are doing apply to the strategic plan. I really think, and I would almost like this to see as just a standing item on our agenda, strategic plan, so that we don't waste that significant amount of money we paid and make sure that what we do, how it relates to the strategic plan that we adopted. And I just don't want another strategic plan in a drawer somewhere. And I know we talked about it. And Bill, I know you have Ms. Trent coming back down in the near future to talk to us. And I think that's wonderful. But I really would like to get this. I don't want to waste the money, and I really want to have our
Okay.
strategic plan in place.
Do
Just a thought.
you want to introduce a motion to the effect that we change our agenda moving forward?
Now, I'll tell you, I mean, it's going to be, I'm going to make a motion that probably won't fly, but I'm going to take a shot. I would move that we remove the item on our agenda for Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District, remove that and replace it with strategic plan report. And the reason I say that is we're no longer directly involved in the lawsuit. We've been opted out by not following up. As our liaison, you give that to us in your commissioner
Anyway.
reports, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
So
it's a
I
good
would,
point.
I would think it's probably time to remove that as an agenda item and put on strategic plan,
How about
discussion.
strategic plan report?
and that's fine.
Then anybody could give it.
Any way you like, you just
discussion.
remove the Upper Arkansas and replace it with
Now, think
strategic
about it.
plan. Yeah.
Daily or maybe once every other month or something.
Well,
Well, if we left it on, you can
just
always.
leave it on there if there's nothing.
Just leave it on there and then we have
Just like we
something
do
we
with the
did.
water.
Okay, I
Sometimes we
agree.
just,
Let's-
sometimes we just say we don't have one.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
The moved and seconded to strike the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District report from the agenda and replace it with county strategic planning report
Perfect.
on a long-term basis moving forward until we do something different.
Till we change it.
Discussion about that?
Thank you. I really appreciate this. It's been bugging me.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of changing that agenda form, say aye. Commissioner Kenda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. I'm sending her an email right now. Take that.
Who was her?
Oh, no, this goes to Kelly.
Yeah.
All right. County strategic plan.
While you're doing that, Vern, have you heard any comments about using the mics this time as opposed to these?
No, I have not, but I've been monitoring the live stream the entire time,
Uh-huh.
and it's fantastic. And the Zoom, they're both, the audio is great.
Thank you so much for working on this and getting it for us. I really appreciate it. And when we get the comment thing with the headphones, I think we're going to be set. And then we'll have COVID go away and we can trash it all out. Whatever.
Exactly.
Thank you for working on that as diligently as you and Alex have. And I'm sorry Alex isn't here because I really wanted to thank him for the great job he did for the county. And I mean that sincerely.
Okay, further discussion or further items come before the group, gentlemen?
I have none, sir.
Mr. Kanda?
Nope.
Nor do I. Public comment? If you have anything you'd like to discuss with the commissioners, now would be the appropriate time.
I'm not seeing anyone unmute themselves.
Okay. Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
You get to do it.
I move that we adjourn.
If you don't hurry up, I'll do it, you rat. I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Kanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Prince,
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Good, I got out in time.